I'm Josiah.
And I'm Adam.
We are still at a gun shop. Today we are going to be talking about a ballot initiative that has been introduced on the state level. It's in consideration right now, or committee, I believe. It's Initiative 82. And it kind of brings into question, is science or politics playing a role when it comes to how wildlife is managed? All the way to the point of how are we looking at our public and private lands and how that's going to affect hunting, how it's going to affect tourism, how that could affect just being out in nature, period.
Yeah. What we're looking at is a pretty big battle here in 2026 if this does pass the snuff and essentially gets pushed on to becoming a ballot initiative.
Yeah.
It's got a lot to go through to get to where it becomes or is on the ballot, but there's a lot behind it.
Yeah.
There's a lot behind it. There's a lot of chess pieces that have been placed for this to succeed in the process.
And the pieces that you're speaking of are appointments.
Appointments and also non-appointments, right? They are hired people.
Okay.
Right? So who's currently on the commission, who is being hired into the state land board, yeah, the major player of this whole piece. It's a top-down restructuring of what we're looking at in Colorado for a hunting aspect and wildlife management.
Yeah. So when I was looking through this initiative, basically they created a Wildlife Ecosystem Conservation Commission, the WECC, which on a quick glance looking through the original ballot initiative, I think it was 52, was like a page and a half. And very easily you could see it's like, oh, this is kind of planning for the demise and the defunding of CPW. Now this new initiative actually is over 6.5 pages, front and back, pretty thick, and goes into more detail, not explicitly listing private property rights, public property rights, eminent domain, but starts to kind of look at how private and public land are being used and how non-science based, or even just saying politics, can be used to make decisions on how those pieces and parts of our countryside are utilized, right?
It's really putting in like a lot of bureaucracy into the management side of something that has worked for so long without that.
Right. So with Ballot Initiative 82, I've got some notes kind of just to keep it in line so that I'm not stretching any of the truths that could be in that. And kind of the highlights are it creates government overreach, unnecessary layers that are not going to utilize any of CPW's 230 plus employees, biologists, admin that have been doing that specific process using science for the last 50 plus years.
And it totally sidesteps them.
Right.
Totally sidesteps them and says, oh, this isn't working. If you look at the 50,000 foot view, this is what I see. Big dumb ape guy. Me, right? I look at it and I go, they're planning on defunding CPW so that they can put their political people in place and do what they want to do politically,
right,
and what they feel is right. When I say they feel, it's the anti-hunting, anti-ag communities.
Yep. And the WECC, it consists of appointees that are not, looking at what us as constituents of, the public are asking for. They're not going to be looking at the science. They use, scientific sounding language, biodiversity, when they should be looking at the science to create an ecosystem that is resilient, which is another one of their buzzwords. But if they're not looking at the actual science and the numbers, they're just going to be able to put in place their political agenda with those people that are been appointed with this wildlife ecosystem committee.
It's really interesting because they where this kind of plays out is like there was a recent study, I believe it was out of California, UC Berkeley, and they talked about how this subset of animals doesn't work because of this, that, and the da 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 da. And what the group that will be in charge of this stuff said was, whoa, 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 that's not peer reviewed. And when they talk about peer reviewed data, they're talking about their peer review.
Right.
Right. So we all can kind of see what's currently playing out in Colorado with the wolf reintroduction.
Yeah.
To say that it's a successful reintroduction or introduction, whichever way you want to word it, I would say no, not really.
Right.
Right. We're not seeing that, but neither here nor there. The wolf thing's a whole separate issue.
Right.
Right. It really brings in 82 really brings in the non-consumptive use piece to Colorado, which is no hunting, no ag,
right,
no ranching, like none of that.
And the other, when I was kind of reading through this, there's no true checks and balances that would be able to utilize what CPW has been putting into place, what CPW has accomplished by having all of these species thrive in the state, while, again, reintroducing another apex predator. How is that going to affect? But from like all of the notes and everything I look at, there's nothing that says that they are going to look at science. They're not going to look at what is actually taking place or has taken place in the state, but it would allow them to, right here I've got independently review ecologically. And what does that mean? There's a huge gap in between what is actually being used as conservation and what could be considered conservation.
Right. I mean, it takes, I don't know, decades of science, decades of boots on the ground work.
Yeah.
Whether that's, a lot of these, non-for-profits that have been working on stuff and just literally wipes them to the side and says, no, you have a financial involvement, so we're not interested in what you're finding.
And maybe you can answer this more appropriately, but CPW is self-sustaining agency that takes no money from Tabor, whereas this new initiative is going to be funded by
fines and what did they say? They stated fines and fees.
Fines and fees.
Which seems to be the new Colorado.
Right. So they get away from Tabor. They don't have to go to the people to get approval for anything. So again, we're, as constituents, as people of Colorado, citizens, we're not going to be taken seriously and or listened to at that point because our money's not being utilized. Those that are being being fined and paying fees are the ones that, again, won't have a voice, but are the ones that are going to be funding this whole project.
Yeah.
When we already have a self-sustaining Colorado Parks and Wildlife that is able to do the things with the scientists, with the biologists, with the administration. It doesn't make any sense to introduce something unless they are truly planning on defunding a working system, because they're going to, I didn't say they're going to defund it. They're going to pillage that money with 003, SB 003. You're going to use that money. what all those parks funds, the $700 million or whatever it is right now, is going to disappear. So they've got a plan in place with Initiative 82 to say, oh, we'll be able to take care of the wildlife and or the parks if that happens.
Right. And on the surface, it looks great. But getting out and reading into it and then educating people, that's the important part, right?
Yeah.
Knowing that, what would be the, it looks great and all, and then you touch it and it pokes you.
Yeah. One of the other things that stood out to me was the wildlife corridors that they mentioned in the initiative.
Yeah.
So if WECC establishes a wildlife corridor and that's on your property, private property,
which you sign into.
Yes. So you'd sign into this. Now you're being told what you can use your property for. If you don't, after you've signed up for this and decide you want to back out, I'm looking at this like now they have the possibility of eminent domain as a non-elected entity to take your property away from you as a possibility. It doesn't explicitly say that, but reading between the lines,
this is them saying, "Oh, you didn't graze this land appropriately. Right. You didn't take down these fences," or there's a lot of things in there that really muddies the water between private property rights, government. It gets, I don't know, if you look at it, just kind of be the devil's advocate a little bit.
Right.
We can kind of look through it and see, whoa.
I mean, even just looking at it from that 50,000-foot view, I was like, why do we need to have another regulatory part or piece or agency, more bureaucracy, when we already have something that's in place? Like, where's the logic in adding more bureaucracy unless it is to remove something that's already in place?
Yeah. And the players, the players that they look to put in charge of this, right? The players they look to put in charge of these things are appointed people who don't have fiscal, I don't know, I can't find the word right now, but if you use the land to gain money, they cannot be involved in the commission of the WECC.
Yeah.
So that goes oil and gas, ag producer.
I forgot about that.
So
they're building this WECC off of people that don't even use the land, that can't use the land.
Right.
And so it's
the way that I look at it is they put a negative connotation in somebody who, I mean, we both know plenty of ranchers and agricultural folks who, I mean, that's their lifeblood, right?
That's everything.
That's everything.
Yeah.
Their family's homesteaded. They take care of the land.
Yeah.
The land produces for them.
Right.
They take care of it. To put it into an evil statement where they're taking away from everybody else's use of the land is just, I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
Personally, it gets into that whole, grazing leases and things like that, right? That some people have, and I've noticed this more recently. I try not to do it, but I do read Facebook comments sometimes. And a lot of people have gotten into this like commentary of where, ranchers that graze on BLM leases are just getting stuff for free. For free. Oh, it's free. And no, they pay for those leases, right? They have to manage the lease. They have to take care of the fences.
Right.
all that type of stuff. But that's become, I think, a more popular opinion recently that I've noticed.
Where do you think that's coming from, though?
I don't know. I think people really don't understand,
right?
Honestly, from a education standpoint of like what these guys actually do out there.
Because
gals.
So a lot of what BLM is that's the natural resources. So Bureau of Land Management, that would be everything that deals with water, uh, natural resources. So your oil, your gas, your minerals, your land, the mine claims, stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And grasses and all different
lumber
types of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So different than the national forest. Different.
Well, national forest does a lot of forestry stuff. I mean, a lot of logging leases and things like that. But I guess the thing that I want to put out there is that just that stuff isn't free.
No.
By any means. And honestly, truthfully, like if you look at it from a biodiversity standpoint, the cows go out there, they feed on the grasses, they are able to bring down some vegetation, but also allow some vegetation to grow. And I'm not a scientist, but I'm a realist.
Right.
And like I see it from a realist standpoint, and it's not free.
No. I think a lot of what's happening in those spaces that you wouldn't have, a huge herd of animals, whether it's domesticated or even wildlife,
Mm-hmm.
the ability to create a structure that allows them to bring down wild grasses. Are there ancient seeds? Are there other things that are happening in that that diversity, the biodiversity thing that they want to create? Is that what's allowing that to return the next year, so that there is a place to graze cattle, and there is a place for the late season hunter to find elk and deer, and if you stop that, they don't have an answer of like what that's going to create, what the tertiary effects are.
Because they're wiping the slate clean, right? Or not wiping it clean, but they're wiping away what has already been found to work. I think what we all forget about is the human race, right?
We're part of the ecosystem.
We're part of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, urban sprawl, like all that type of stuff, right? Everybody wants to live in the mountains. Great, come on up.
Yep.
You're invited. The grocery store isn't right around the corner. Just FYI.
Make a trip.
So, just knowing that, like, I feel like it's kind of a sheltered view, honestly, on all the stuff, but where it gets into is limiting outdoor recreation access.
Yeah.
Right?
Whether you're side by side, four-wheeling, overlanding, two-wheeling, hiking, it's going to affect that access greatly, because they will be able to
shut roads,
anything they want.
Shut down roads, shut down trails.
And if people are complaining now about Jeep access and outdoor access, just wait. Like, they will have they won't have to go through any process. They'll just be able to do it based off of the language that is in this initiative.
Boom, there's a sign.
Yeah, no more.
You're done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, I really just want to bring light to these types of things. We're in a really great relationship with Dan Gates. He's on the forefront of this. If you don't, follow his podcast, Through the Gates, he's got great information. He's putting out some really good stuff. It's an opportunity to kind of just listen in and see what is going to happen in the state of Colorado. We want to bring as much light to it so that people are not taken off guard at this in 2026 when you see this on there. I'm like, oh yeah, this looks like a good plan. I'm like, nope. I heard this from Salada Gun Shop.
I heard this from Dan Gates. I heard this from CRWM.
Yep.
I heard this from Go Hunt. I heard this from, name it. Yep. You're going to hear it.
Yep.
It's going to be there. The Blue Book, it's going to read in a way that makes it look like a diamond.
Yeah.
It is not a diamond.
Yeah. And luckily, with how 127 was so well taken care of by the initiative CRWM, Dan Gates, all the other people that worked on this to get the word out. Like, look into this. Like, are we listening to the scientists, or are we going to put this on the ballot so that people can decide? Like, we need the ability to trust the science, the people that have been doing it for many, many years. Yep. We need to be able to continue that going forward for the state of Colorado to be what everybody wants to move to.
Absolutely.
If we do away with that, then Colorado's not going to be what people want to move into. It's not going to be what I want to be a part of. It's going to be hard to stay here.
I'd be curious right now too. Like, the thing is visiting of Colorado looks like it's on the decline.
Yeah.
Right? I'll be interested to see when the numbers come out for draw results. Obviously, some of us drew tags, some of us didn't.
Did not.
But what I would like to see is, like, how are the numbers down? Are the numbers up? Where are we at?
So, I'm trying to get myself looped in as much county commission meetings, visitors bureau meeting, Poncha Springs, Salida, just try and be involved as much as I can. I think I kind of alluded to before we sat down for this, but the visitors bureau was not all too excited about what was happening with the numbers. Like, they're seeing a decline. So already, not related to any of this, but economically, if gas prices go up, if prices increase, people don't travel.
Right.
They spend their money elsewhere. And I see your point with, like, how are people going to spend their money when they come to drawing tags, or do they turn tags in?
Right.
And is that good for Coloradans on the long run? Probably not. Like,
no, it's not.
No,
it's definitely not. We costly and unnecessary.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what this is.
Duplicative. It creates way more bureaucracy. So what's truly at stake with Ballot Initiative 82?
You got 960 species, game and non-game. You got 350 state wildlife areas.
Yeah.
Who are we looking at? Who are we entrusting to actually manage this?
Yeah.
Jared Polis' cronies, or the people that we've entrusted for the last several decades?
Yeah. I would say thank a CPW officer.
Yes.
Let them know the job that they've been doing, the job that they are going to continue hopefully doing, is important. And just know that this is not something we want to be taken over by politicians, bureaucrats that think that they have the idea that they can make it so much more utopian than it already is. Colorado's a great state.
Yes.
What are they thinking?
I have no idea.
Just keep this in the forefront. Be aware. So if you hear this ballot initiative, we'll try and keep on top of it as much as we can as things kind of divulge themselves moving forward. Once it moves from committee, I think how they reintroduce it, they might change the name of it.
They'll change the number.
Yeah, reintroduce it. The original 152 did get killed in committee pretty quickly, but obviously was reintroduced again. So we're going to try and stay on top of this for you guys, keep as much information flowing. So continue to stay tuned. If you like this type of content, again, go ahead, give us a like, give us a comment on other things that we need to bring to attention, and really appreciate you guys listening.
Bottom line, say no to more government control, say no to new restriction on landowners, public land use, and say yes to freedom, stewardship, in the Colorado way of life.